Each week, nearly a dozen movies are released theatrically. 40 films a month, more than 400 a year. That's a plethora of cinema. Too much cinema. You'd have to be an addict to see all that. But don't fret, we've got you covered. This is CinemAddicts.
Hey everyone, what's up? It is a new episode of CinemAddicts. This is CinemAddicts episode 296. This will be a very quick CinemAddicts for a couple of reasons. First of all, Erik Chavez had a sinus headache yesterday, okay? And I'm not going to blame him. This is the first time in 5 years he had to miss a recording because he had a sinus headache. And what's it like to have a sociopathic person like me who didn't ask you how you're feeling? I said, hey, oh, you have a sinus headache? You want to kill yourself euphemistically? I didn't ask him how he was doing. I go, when can you record tomorrow? How do you feel? Do you feel like not good that I'm not empathetic with your plight, Erik Chavez?
I don't care about that.
You should care. I'm your partner. Me and Bruce Purkey. Bruce Purkey's a partner. He does his stuff with CinemAttic, and then he's also, I don't know, he hasn't even graduated People Food right now. Did you give your sinus headache to Bruce Purkey in the attic?
I hope not.
Okay. Because then we can't record the show.
Yeah, I'll feel bad and I'll have to give him real food, and I don't like that idea.
How are you feeling right now? I know you're going to work pretty soon. How do you feel right now? Are you okay for work? Are you okay with the headache?
Still a bit stuffed up, still a little bit of a headache, but it's not debilitating like it was yesterday. Yesterday if we would have recorded yesterday, it would have just been like me, just like, I don't care.
It's good because right now brevity is the soul of wit. We will be recording this for a little bit, and look, bringing up the rear of this episode, of course, as always, will be Bruce Purkey over the CinemAttic. He has reviews for movies coming out for the week of Friday, May 30th, 2025. Movies we are covering today include Ghost Trail, Oldboy, and Ron Delsener presents. Actually, Bruce Purkey has also reviews of the aforementioned Oldboy and Ghost Trail. Erik Chavez, let's start off with something the top. Very quick, assigned Patreon. Oldboy, you saw both versions. Okay, it centers on, there's a person named Dae-soo, played by Choi Min-sik.
Oh, Dae-soo.
Dae-soo, like you said, he is an obnoxious drunk, and he's bailed out from the police station by a friend. The problem is it's raining outside, if I recall. There's a phone booth, and his best friend, I don't know what's happening. If I recall, Dae-soo is kidnapped from the area immediately, and his friend is going, where's my buddy? Where's Dae-soo? And what happens is Dae-soo is abducted from the street. He wakes up in a cell where he remains in that cell. It's not actually a cell, it's a room. It seems like a hotel or apartment room.
Yeah.
Would you call it a small room, Erik Chavez? A small room?
I think like a motel room.
Or livable. Okay, yeah. For the night. Livable for the night, but is it livable for the next 15 years? And that's what Dae-soo has to understand.
I could probably do it.
You could probably do it if he gets good food.
I know for a fact you could do it.
Oh, Erik Chavez is not a shot.
Greg, you're probably watching this movie going, that's my dream. Please, for the love of God, someone do that.
Okay. I take offense to Erik Chavez actually telling the truth, because I lived in a high rise in downtown Los Angeles in this place called Bunker Hill. And right outside my door, Erik Chavez, there was this place called the Museum of Contemporary Art. They showed great art from, I don't know, maybe, who knows, Basquiat, just great contemporary art, modern art right behind my high rise. Plus, they had a nice art gallery. They had a nice hotel. But how many times in my 10 years of living in that high rise in downtown did I go to the Museum of Contemporary Art to look at the art?
Not once.
Oh, my God. Okay. I went there in 10 years, maybe 5 times. But it's
five
almost
more times than I would have thought.
But it's almost right. So to your point, Erik Chavez, I could have probably lived 15 years in that place. I might have been in heaven, in hog heaven, eating all that stuff they're giving me every single second.
They would have put me in a suitcase and I would have walked outside and be, no, bring me back.
So basically, I'm exactly like this Dae-soo in the sense that I could stay in a place. So anyway.
The point of this is Dae-soo doesn't want to be there.
He doesn't.
Like it was with him, it's not you're going to be here for 15 years. It's he woke up there. He doesn't know why he's there. He didn't know when he's going to get out, if ever. And then they even bring that up in the movies. Does that make the 15 years go by longer or shorter? Not even knowing. Like if you could count down the 15 years, at least you got some frame of reference. But if you're just there, who knows? I don't even know how long I've been. Maybe don't even know how long I've been here.
What's interesting,
he does because he's putting the tattoos on, but
right, he's putting the tattoos on him, and the movie itself could exist. Oldboy could have existed as a person who's trying to survive these 15 years in the cell or in the, Erik Chavez was saying, the motel room ish. It could have been that story, but it's not exactly that story because ultimately he gets out, he's released after these 15 years, and Daisu goes on a mission to figure out, to seek revenge on the people or the person who tormented him and put him in that jail, basically jail for 15 years. And the narrative ends up, he meets a woman at a restaurant, and that woman ends up being this young girl, young woman, ends up being his friend, and she helps him try to figure out who drugged him and put him in jail for 15 years. That is the premise of Oldboy. Bruce Purkey over at the CinemAttic, he has some spoiler-ish stuff regarding Oldboy, so you'll be treated to that in moments. So thank you, Bruce Purkey, for your spoiler talk for Oldboy. The movie is directed and co-written by Park Chan-wook. The rating for this, critic rating, is 82%. The audience rating is 94% for Oldboy. And I saw, yes, Eric Holmes?
I'd say it seems low.
Seems low. The 94% seems low, or the 82%, or both? Both. I agree with you. Park Chan-wook, visual master. What else can we say about him? Did The Handmaiden? Did what else? Decision to Leave. Eric Holmes is, I think, a huge fan of Lady Vengeance. He's just a very interesting filmmaker. This is considered by a lot of people to be his masterwork, but it can be argued. There's a lot of other great Park Chan-wook movies. We didn't even mention Stoker, which is a great film. I don't know. Did you like Stoker, Eric Holmes, back in the day? Yep.
Got the.
You got the Blu-ray for that?
No, I was trying to think of what the other one is.
The Handmaiden, Decision to Leave, and then there's also Stoker.
Thirst.
Yeah, I haven't seen Thirst. That's the one the vampire movie, right? You like the vampire? Okay, Thirst. So, look, our Oldboy's great movie. We're not going to mention the twist. I'm sure Bruce Purkey's going to mention the twist as well. I want to ask you, Eric Holmes, you were able to watch Oldboy again. I don't know if you watched Oldboy again, but you did watch the Spike Lee version of Oldboy, because you don't really need to watch Oldboy again, the original, because you've seen it so many times over the years. But
I watched them back to back.
Okay, back to back. Okay, 20 plus years ago, again, this is our assigned Patreon pick, I did the press junket to Oldboy, and people gave me this. I know some journalists were surprised 20 plus years ago that I did not see. No, back in 2013, I did the press junket for Oldboy, directed by Spike Lee, and journalists were surprised that I hadn't seen the original Oldboy. So I ended up liking and loving the Spike Lee version without watching the original. Now, it's weird because now I finally got to see Oldboy. I'll give my little mini review in a second. Eric Holmes, I know we all know how classic Oldboy the original is. What is your thoughts on Spike Lee's version of Oldboy? Was it a failure to you, or because of, or did it work?
I liked it for the most part. I think I was watching an interview with Spike Lee where I was talking with, I think Josh Brolin was talking with Park Chan-wook, get the blessing for the remake, as if you need that. But I guess Park Chan-wook said, don't remake my movie, make it your own. Because Oldboy is based on a comic book. It's not even Park Chan-wook. It's not Park Chan-wook original. It's based on a comic book. So you got latitude for a different adaptation. But this felt like when watching the remake, I'm just trying to figure out why. Because they're like just kind of redoing some of the key scenes, or making... They didn't have the scene where he eats the octopus, but then they have the scene where he's like looking at the octopus in a fish tank. It's like, why? Like... They don't have him buying wings, but they have a scene where he buys the trinket. The girl's wearing the wings. They got like all that.
Do you think that's cool? That's like a nice homage, or do you think it's derivative? Or
they do. It's not derivative. It's definitely meant as an homage. But I'm watching Oldboy and I'm like, I don't understand what the new take is here. So you've seen the Spike Lee version before the Park Chan-wook version, and I can see, not having seen the original and then watching the Spike Lee version, I could see watching that going, oh yeah, it's pretty good. And I would agree with you. It is a good movie. But if you've already seen the Park Chan-wook version, I don't understand what the utility of the Spike Lee version is.
The utility, okay, and playing devil's advocate, okay, and I'm just throwing this out there to you. The utility, since you've seen both
don't have
movies,
to read subtitles.
You don't, okay, for the Spike Lee version, you don't have to read, okay. And if you want to see Josh Brolin with the hammer, okay, like you saw Choi Min-sik with the hammer sequence is there. Okay, you're going to get that with the Spike
Not
Lee
as
version.
good, but it's there.
But right, not as good, but it's there. the ending, we're not going to talk about the ending of the Oldboy Spike Lee version, is completely different from the original. I'm not arguing with you at the point, but I think
the method on how they got there was different, but it ends up at the same place, we'll
you
say.
think so? Really?
Because in the Park Chan-wook, it's hypnotism
Sure.
over 15 years. In this one, it's an elaborate
Situation. But I think the final, well, I'm not going to defend Spike Lee's Oldboy after watching Oldboy, but I will say there is enough difference in the ending with the Josh Brolin part, which I think they were trying to make it different. I don't know if it completely works because after watching Oldboy, the original, I thought that ending was amazing. The ending of the original is amazing. So I understand the frustration with Spike Lee's
Oh,
Oldboy
okay. You're talking about
and the end. Okay.
yeah. I do like where the Spike Lee one ends, and as far as like the end, like just before the credits roll,
Sure.
I like the original too.
Oh, the original's so
Did you
good.
notice like because like he's slowly walking away,
Yeah.
and I thought they might have done this because I've seen this a couple of times. I never thought to do this before, but as he's walking away from the camera, he takes 15 steps before the lights go black.
Okay.
And he was in there for 15 years. 15 steps. On the 15th step, that's when the lights go out. I'm like, oh, they did the thing.
That's it. Okay, Eric, do you think the Spike Lee version then is not necessary watching, or is it just was it worth a watch for you? Were you fine with
I would
watching?
say if you haven't seen any of them, watch the Spike Lee one first
Okay.
and enjoy that, and then go back and watch the original. It'd be kind of like I still haven't seen Let Me In, but I like Let the Right One In, and I read the book, and the book's like has like a bunch of different. They have stuff in the book that you can film because otherwise it'd be child porn. But when they said they were making the American remake, and then someone was like, "I'm going to follow the book more," and first of all, I'm like, "Please don't," but also maybe there's something a little more here. Still haven't seen Let Me In, so I don't know if that's the case. But with Old Boy, I don't know why it was made.
Okay.
Like I understand why it was made because Old Boy was a hit and they wanted to do an American remake. That makes sense. Artistically, I don't know why it was remade.
Okay.
And there's a little bit of trivia with this. This was a Spike Lee film. This is not a Spike Lee joint. It has to
Interesting.
do with apparently there's like a 30-40 minute longer cut of this
What?
that never was released.
Amazing. That is
And so
interesting.
perhaps that might add a little extra something that this movie didn't have. But yeah, again, it's not a bad movie. It's just I don't understand why it needs to exist,
My
at
rating.
least in this version of it.
Okay, my rating for Park Chan-wook's Old Boy is 5 stars. Am I assuming, Eric Holmes, that's your same rating, maybe 6.9 stars for Old Boy, the original?
I'll 6.9 is Lady Vengeance, but I'll go 5 stars for sure on this.
5 stars for me for Old Boy, but then you also have a separate rating for the Spike Lee version. What would you give that? It's
What that one probably be oh what shoot what I want 3.5 4.
okay.
I think I'll go like 4 stars.
Oh, 4 stars. Okay.
Because had I not seen the original, I would think that the Spike Lee one was really good.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I have seen the original,
Still a
and
good rating
so
for Old Boy. Still,
yeah.
4 stars is still a
So
good
so
rating.
I'm trying to pretend that I hadn't seen the original and trying to judge it based on that. But I think realistically, I probably want to go like 3 stars because like they just don't get deep into certain themes and ideas. And then there was also a weird part where they do a flashback of what the dad did to the family. I'm sorry, I'm gonna give this part away. So he's going around and he's shooting a bunch of people with a shotgun, comes downstairs and he's about to shoot his son, and his son's taking a nap and wakes up. Oh, hey, father. Wait, the shotgun shots didn't wake you up. It was him stepping into the room.
Okay, so that is Eric's review for both.
That was just a dumb thing. But yeah, you know what? I'll go 3.5 on the remake.
Okay, 3.5 on the.
I would say if you've seen the original and then you want to watch the Spike Lee just out of curiosity, definitely not a bad watch. It definitely worth watching as a curiosity. If you haven't seen any of them, watch the Spike Lee one first and then go to the old one. And then that way you can enjoy both of them. It'd be just like when I tell people like about I Am Legend. watch the Will Smith I Am Legend movie, and then, oh wow, this is a cool movie, and then go back and read the book, and then get your mind blown.
Okay, so that
Don't
is
read the book and then watch the Will Smith movie, because then you're gonna read the book, you're gonna be like, oh boy, I can't wait, and then you're gonna watch the Will Smith movie going, the hell's this crap?
okay. So that is our review and Eric's review of both very interesting old boy takes. So next up, before Eric goes, is I want to mention a couple of movies before we're out of here. There's a documentary called Ron Delsener Presents. Okay, you're thinking, who's Ron Delsener? That's what this documentary is supposed to do. It's directed by Jake Sumner. It hits theaters May 30th. Ron Delsener was a very popular and very powerful concert promoter in New York. He had a career in New York as that concert promoter for over 60 years. And if you are a fan of music, if you are a fan of New York City, you'll eventually get to know who Ron Delsener is. There's some great anecdotes in this documentary from Bon Jovi, John Bon Jovi. There's also some really interesting stuff from Simon and Garfunkel. You get some their concert in Central Park, which was I really love from I think 1981. That's spotlighted in Ron Delsener Presents. But then you also get to see so many different people, just great music artists, and how many people he actually influenced in his life as a concert promoter. If you actually wanted to play in New York in one of these big venues, there's a good chance you would have to go through Ron Delsener for a number of years. The documentary also looks at the evolution of the concert promoters and how they eventually morphed into something like Live Nation, how they became conglomerates. And people like Ron Delsener are, it's hard to be a concert promoter now, especially when you have Big Brother, Big Mother, the big conglomerates are over you. So there's actually some business elements to Ron Delsener Presents. Ultimately, though, Ron Delsener as a person is highly interesting. And I really, he's, well, how would you say, salt of the earth, Eric Holmes? He's a guy who can actually, when he, when someone enters a room, you just realize that they actually, oh my gosh, there's a spider on the wall that I really want to kill. Anyways, I'm going to have to track that down in a second.
So that's what your murderous eyes look like.
The murderous eyes, yes. But Ron Delsener Presents, very good documentary. Really enjoyed it. And I don't know how many minutes it's. I think it's 99 minutes, not one wasted moment, because Ron Delsener is such an interesting person. Again, like I said, salt of the earth, very, just even at his age, I think he's maybe in his 80s, maybe mid to late 80s. I don't know how old he is, but he's elderly. He still has a lot of energy, and he's still really into, even though he's retired, he's still really passionate about concert promoting. So if you want to listen to some really great anecdotes from these music people, these big music heavyweights, there's also Bette Midler's in this as well. Some great interviews, and most importantly, some great insights from Ron Delsener. Ron Delsener Presents, I'm giving it 4 stars worth. And if you're a fan of New York, this is a New York documentary, New York set documentary, and it really goes by in a jiff. As Anderson Cowan would say, it goes down smooth. This documentary definitely really went down smooth. And I know maybe the title won't jump out to you, but this is one of my value added recommendations for this week. Ron Delsener Presents. You're going to be interested in him moving forward. And when it ended, I was like, I would have actually liked maybe 20 more minutes of this documentary to learn more about Ron Delsener. So that is that. Finally, we have Ghost Trail. Bruce Purkey has the full review over at the CinemAttic, and I will say this, I disagreed with what he has to say, but I want to actually get Eric's take on Ghost Trail. Centers on this person named Hamid. The movie opens with Hamid. He's actually in the back of a truck, and he's emaciated. He is, along with his other fellow Syrians, he is taken to the middle of the desert, and he's abandoned there by a bunch of soldiers. And Hamid, played by Adam Bessa, he is, again, maybe on death's dying door. There's a person right next to him who just falls dead in front of him because they probably haven't had food and water for I don't know how long, and they have to actually journey through that desert. Hamid
actually stopping an alarm clock, and the rest of the movie is the lead up to the next interesting thing that happened.
Okay, so what happened is Hamid, again played by Adam Bessa, you realize he ends up in the French city of Strasbourg, and you're wondering what's going on with this guy. He is actually haunted by the memories of his imprisonment. He has past tragedies, which we won't mention or spoil, but he believes in Strasbourg, France, there is a man played by Tawfiq Barhoum, and I forgot the name of the man in this one, but it's played by Tawfiq Barhoum, and he's an academic, and he sees this guy and he believes that person is the actual person who tortured him and other Syrians back in the day. And Hamid, again played by Adam Bessa, he's part of a network where they try to find these torturers during the Syrian civil war, hunt them down, and figure out whether to exact revenge or actually use justice to catch these perpetrators. So the big mystery of the Ghost Trail is the man that Hamid is hunting and searching for and tracking down. Is he the torturer, or is he actually an innocent man? It's directed by Jonathan Millet, or I think he's pronounced it Millet, but I don't know. I'm not very good with French pronunciations, but it's a very good movie. Julia Fran Richter also stars as Nina. She is one of the fellow agents, fellow spies who helps Hamid try to figure out if this person is guilty or not. Currently, critics rating 95%, Rotten Tomatoes. Erik Holmes, your quick review and take on Ghost Trail. I don't think you're going to be what did it drag for you?
I need you to run with me here.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So what I thought of the movie.
Yeah, go ahead. Keep on talking. I'm going to kill something right now.
Didn't need to be nearly.
Sorry, Erik Holmes. I just killed a spider. Sorry, Erik Holmes. Yes.
Long. Could have done it.
Oh no.
In 15
No.
minutes. Much I could have said that sentence I just said. I could have said it in much shorter amount of time. Instead, I had to stretch it out and make it long and annoying and stupid for no reason.
No, you're not going to make it. Unfortunately, AI is going to cut your pauses, Erik Holmes. I'm sorry.
That's going to ruin the whole point.
I'm so sorry, Erik. You and I, Erik, you and I are not even here. I know you have to go in about 5 minutes, but we're dominated by AI. So this is.
Then they're going to miss the whole point of the review. This movie's bad. This movie's terrible.
No.
It starts off great, and then it's just nothing for two. Why is this movie? Greg, sell me on this movie. Why is this movie 2 hours? What did I miss?
No, it's just different horses for courses. We said this on our Patreon.
But that's what I'm saying. Sell it to me, because I watched the movie. I'm just like, is this I will say the ending almost got interesting, and then it ended where it did, and then that fizzled out into nothing.
Okay, in defense, to Erik Holmes' defense, he called Ghost Trail terrible. I feel, for me, Ghost Trail is one of my favorite films of this year, and the reason why goes right down. And even though AI is going to cut Erik's pauses for a while, it is an acquired taste, meaning a lot of people will not like the pacing of this movie. It's very slow burn. For me, it's a very character-driven thriller, very value-added, great performance from Adam Bessa. It's an atmospheric, immersive thriller, which will frustrate some people like Erik Holmes because of the pacing. Okay, some people make it to be terrible.
There's a movie called Taste of Cherry, and that has very slow pace, and the pace is almost 1-to-1 the same as Ghost Trail.
Considered a classic, Taste of Cherry. Yeah.
Thing about Taste of Cherry though is that it has ideas in it throughout the movie. It doesn't it doesn't wait till the very end to load them all up. It's got throughout the movie. So when it has those reflective moments, you have something to reflect on. With Ghost Trail, it's just a guy following someone. I think he sniffs the back of his neck once, and
you're not wrong. You're not wrong. He does.
There's no meat here until you get to the end, and by the time you get to the end, the movie's done. So who cares? Like, what are we reflecting on through the rest of the movie?
I just think it's a very reflective. There is that sniffing in the person's back of the neck. There is an actual couple of confrontations between the suspected man and Hamid. And I found those.
And it's gonna go nowhere, because I'm looking at the scrubber at the bottom. It's like we're nowhere near the end, so nothing's gonna.
It was a tough watch for you.
Like the one part where it's he's gonna push him in front of the train. He's not gonna push him in front of the train. There's an hour left in the movie. He's not gonna do that. Nothing's gonna happen. Train pulls up, nothing happened. He kept following him. Big spoiler. Nothing happened until the end of the movie.
Bruce Purkey has a little bit more to say in a few moments regarding CinemAttic and his review of Ghost Trail. Who knows? His review might echo the same sentiments as Erik Holmes. Erik has to leave in a couple minutes because he has to go to work. But I will say this: Ghost Trail was immersive. Great, again, like I said, great performance by Adam Bessa. I was immersed, and every single moment to me was just very magnetic and mesmerizing to me. I really loved this movie. Again, I understand what Eric Holmes and a lot of people will feel about Ghost Trail. My rating for Ghost Trail, one of my favorites of the year, 5 stars.
Oy.
Yes. Oi. How about you,
Um,
Eric Holmes? I know you got to get out of here. What's your rating?
I'll go 2.5.
2.5.
I want to go lower, but I will say that, like, if this was cut down to 20 minutes, this would be a really great 20-minute short. There's no reason this movie had to be 2 hours. The only reason this movie is 2 hours is because the director wanted to stream it along and waste my time.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out, like, why. I give you 2 hours of my time. What did you do with it? You squandered it for an hour and 40 minutes.
My time was not squandered. Different horses for different courses. Where do you guys stand for Ghost Trail? It's in theaters May 30th. Who knows? Maybe down the line when it gets streaming, you guys might tell us what you think of Ghost Trail. Is it a 2.5 star for you, like Eric Holmes, or is it 5 stars? Or maybe.
Yeah, you know what? Ghost Trail, that 20-minute movie is a fantastic movie.
Uh-oh.
Make that version. Make that 20-minute version.
Okay, so that is it for this episode of, and I'm a little bit jittery because of karma. I just killed that little spider and I feel very bad. It's on my slipper. I murdered a spider. I'm sorry, folks.
You didn't see the spider's family behind your head.
Don't worry. You might not see me next week. I might have a bunch of
They're
spider bites.
all crying. They're not going to attack you right away. They're too emotionally distressed.
All right, so Eric Holmes, you have to go pretty soon. Very quickly, for this month on Patreon, we are covering the year 1995 for the month of June. Eric Holmes and I just recorded Patreon. We did a review of Owning Mahoney and Tears of the Sun. Again, please, $5 catch-all for Patreon. And yeah, you're going to hear Bruce Purkey in a few moments. You want to say something before you get out of here, Eric
Yeah,
Holmes?
we should have mentioned this at the top, but I forgot. But Pervulo's Children of the Apocalypse will be on demand June 3rd. I believe we talked about that. It was like a month or two ago.
Good, right?
After you're done watching Ghost Trail, go check out Children of the Apocalypse and wake yourself up, because that's the movie that gets to the meat.
Speaking of meat, if you want to listen to Eric Holmes' take on how to actually make a Swiss mushroom burger, that's for our Patreon exclusive. And that's very good. Look,
it's not that tough. It's pretty easy.
I was gonna say that's what she said, but it's a family show. Eric Holmes has to go to work. Where are you going, Eric, right now? Where are you going now? Where are you off to?
Going to Skybox. Missed steak night last night because I was sick, but
okay.
Feel
better, Eric Holmes. He is actually toughing through a sinus headache, and that's why we're a day late and of course $1 short, because thanks to me we're $1 or several dollars short. But thank you guys. Thank you, Eric Holmes, for toughing this out. I know you're under the weather. Have fun at Skybox, and of course, here's Bruce Purkey.
Welcome to the CinemAttic. Once again, I have cracked the seal, broken the lock. I picked the lock. I'm not going to break it. He might know I got out. Broken the lock, picked the lock, whatever. Crawled down into the main house, found the recording equipment, and I am going to give you an update on my viewing activities for the last week, which are a little bit more limited than normal, and I always come with this same story whenever it's a Patreon week, and this is a Patreon week. Now you might say, Bruce, what do you have for the Patreon this week? It is going to be 2 movies from 2003. We have Owning Mahoney, which I had never seen before, and we had Tears of the Sun, which I also had never seen before. Bruce Willis joint, and Owning Mahoney is a Philip Seymour Hoffman joint. But those are to be heard on the Patreon. We do have one 2003 movie that's the extra movie for the Patreon that we always throw onto the main episode, and that is Oldboy. And I do believe this will be the first watch by Greg. And I think Eric might have gone and watched the remake just to give some comparison. I was thinking about that as well. And then I thought about it and said, my time is too valuable to spend watching some garbage called Oldboy, the remake. So instead, after I rewatched the original Oldboy again for the first time in probably 20 years, I watched a couple videos that compared the two, just to make sure that I knew the basics of what was wrong and weird and incorrect about the remake. So I had that under my belt. Okay, but what are the movies we're covering on this episode? At least what am I covering this episode? We have a movie called Ghost Trail. Also have, like I said, the Oldboy remake, and a couple recommends. I don't usually bring recommends too much, but I did go see a movie in the theater. I went and saw Final Destination Bloodlines. I'll give you a quick recap on that. And I also caught up with the Bong Joon-ho movie, Mickey 17. We can talk about that really quick. Okay, let's start with the main screener of the week, and that is the movie Ghost Trail. Ghost Trail is directed by Jonathan Millet, starring as Hamid. You've got Adam Bessa, which you may know that name. He's been in a few things. I think Greg, I think had mentioned that Adam Bessa was in those Extraction movies on Netflix, I believe. I never watched those. I've heard they had some decent action moments in them, but I never watched them. And then also in this movie is playing the character of Harfaz. You've got Barham. So what is the basic idea? Hamid is our main character in Ghost Trail, and he is basically a Syrian refugee who is, in the most of the movie, we're in France. Let me put down, if I put out where they're at, Strasbourg. They're in the Strasbourg area. It's supposed to be in like 2016. The idea is that, so this is similar to a real low-key Munich in some ways, because basically you've got all these Syrian refugees that create this loose-knit group who will try to secretly hunt down war criminals from the Syrian war conflict and everything. And in this case, they're trying to look up this guy who was a torturer at a prison. And Hamid had been at this prison. And of course, the people that had been tortured by this guy never saw his face because the torturer made sure that the victims had masks on at all time. So the only thing they can base it on is things like voice and scent, because they were tortured by this guy and you could smell like his cologne or whatever he was wearing, but mainly voice and that. And then other than that, looking up historical information about a person and seeing if it was possible that they could have been in the area, and that they have the kind of history around them that might make sense that they were at the same place at the same time. So for a good chunk of this movie, Hamid is following around somebody in Strasbourg in the university area that he thinks might be this torturer. There's also a main contact that Hamid has, and there's some other things, but basically it's Hamid following this guy. And as he's doing that, he's also trying to build up evidence that he has the right guy. And the people he's contacting are back and forth on whether they think he's just going on a wild goose chase and following the wrong person, because they think they have a line on who the person is, and it's not the guy he's following. So for a good chunk of this movie, you're like, is he following the right guy or isn't he following the right guy? And I would say the predominant kind of vibe of the movie is less thriller, because if you go in this looking for a thriller, I think you're going to be disappointed, because it's not going to have, I guess the thriller elements you have in a movie like Munich are a little more straightforward, where you've got a lot of the moral aspects of what does it mean to, quote, take revenge or take retribution on somebody without trial that was involved in terrorist activities or heinous activities. That was a big emotional kind of ethical subplot of Munich. Here, that plays there a little bit, but even more on the front end, as opposed to the retribution side of things, it's much more of the, if you're haunted by this experience, scarred literally, physically, and emotionally by its experience of being tortured, can you, in an unclouded way, actually find and research and figure out who did this to you? Or are you going to constantly be seeing these ghosts in the wrong people? And are you maybe going to just be, I guess, cursed by the fact that you're doing this never-ending search for people? Because the idea is that, say this guy is the guy they're looking for. If they find him, the goal is not to assassinate him, but the goal is to make a case, basically. Spy on the guy, get as much information as they can, make a case for the guy, and then send it to like the UN courts or something like that. Send it to the world court to show that this war criminal is this person. That's the idea, not to go out and actually assassinate the guy. So the question then becomes, they just do this over and over again, right? It's supposed to find a guy and not find the guy and then go on to the next person on their list. They have some sort of a list we never even see. So really your day-to-day existence with this movie is to follow Hamid and see how it's affecting his life. I think where it's most effective is where you're seeing how broken he is and seeing how, like I said, haunted is the best kind of description I would keep using for Hamid, because at one point when he's trying to make the case and see if he's got the right guy, he asks for this tape, And there's this tape of a ton of interviewees of people who are tortured by the same guy. And they're all talking about their experiences on this one tape. And Hamid wants to hear that so he can hear what other people experience too and make sure he sees those common things and he is sure that he's getting the right guy. And by doing that, he's also re-traumatizing himself because he's re-experiencing his own torture in the sense of hearing what happened to other people and remembering what happened to himself. So you never see the torture, you never get this really graphic scenes in here. It's all just this internal like nightmare that this guy's experiencing and hearing the words of other people and what they experienced. There is also a little subplot of another person that's on the same mission. It's his main like physical contact. Everything else is via internet, but his physical contact within Strasbourg and what her history is and what her kind of output is on this. And then there's another woman, a Syrian woman he meets at a refugee camp that he connects with and offers the idea of a quote normal life and maybe a future that isn't this kind of ghost assassin in a sense, just walking through life with no other purpose but to relive this horror and to try to find the people who created that horror. As you might guess from my description, not a super uplifting movie, not an action-packed movie. It's, like I said, it's a very low-key, serious drama. And I think its effectiveness is going to really work or not work depending on your expectation. Once again, if you go in looking for an action revenge kind of flick or an intense, bloody, like war crime kind of movie, it's definitely not going to work for you. If you go in for just a serious kind of a heady drama, I think you might get a lot more out of this. All that being said, I wasn't fully satisfied by it. I felt like it did do a lot to, I wouldn't say create suspense, but it's not really suspenseful, but it definitely created dramatic suspense. Like you were leading towards a confrontation, something coming to a head. And I don't think it quite got there. And I think that's part of the point. I understand why they didn't quite get there, but it still left me a little unsatisfied dramatically and narratively. I wanted a more resolution. And once again, I think that's a point. The lack of resolution is the resolution in this movie. I understand that dramatically, but in the actual experience of watching the movie, it didn't really work as much for me as I probably would have liked something a little more traditional in that aspect. I'm going to still give it a slight recommend at 3 stars because I think that all the actors and all of the production, everything here is really well done. I just feel like I wanted more from the story. If this arc of this movie had been the point, maybe if we had multiple cases that he went on, so we had different comparisons and maybe had more of an arc for him, like how is he going from case to case and how are these affecting him as opposed to just this one case? I think I might have enjoyed that a little bit more. But overall, it was okay. It was okay. 3-star movie for me. And that is, once again, Ghost Trail. All right. Next up, we've got a little movie called Oldboy from 2003, directed by Park Chan-wook, who has done many great movies. The Handmaiden comes to mind. Stoker, I do believe, is another one. Thirst, which I watched recently in the last few years, which is a pretty great vampire movie. And of course, he has the Vengeance trilogy. So Oldboy being the most famous, but then of course he has Lady Vengeance and Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. All 3 are pretty great. I know that Erik loves Lady Vengeance the most. I need to go back and rewatch Lady Vengeance because I might love it the most too, but I've only watched it the one time way back when. So I don't think I had as many, South Korean or Korean movies in general under my belt. So I think I was still a little thrown off in those days by the very unusual narrative kind of formats for Western audiences that you get sometimes in South Korean movies. And now I'm much more seasoned to that. And I think more open to how that works, how you can go from styles and genres and the narratives aren't really what you expect a lot of times in a Western movie. So I need to watch Lady Vengeance again, but what I remember of it is being pretty darn great. My memory is that it and Oldboy were like pretty much a tie. So I'm thinking like depending on my mood in the day, I would probably lean slightly one way or the other. I remember Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance definitely being a little bit below the other two. Anyway, that being said, they're all worth watching. So Oldboy, once again, I don't think I'm going to go into a huge plot summary other than the basic thing. If you don't know Oldboy, go check it out. I think right now it's streaming for free on Paramount Plus. It's worth buying it if you haven't bought it. A lot of people love this so much it's on their top 10 or 20 of all time. I don't think it's quite there for me, but it's justified to be that high for people. I get it. It's a fantastic, stylish movie. It definitely has some early 2000s style things going on with some CGI kind of stuff to kind of give it extra. But the undeniable, like, brilliance of Park Chan-wook comes out pretty clearly when you watch this movie. And it has one of the greatest hooks in recent movies. And that is, you got this main character who just, he's, okay, how do I say it? Just some loner guy who, he's got a kid, but he seems like he's a deadbeat dad. He's drunk in a drunk tank at the beginning of the movie, and within a couple minutes, he disappears. And then you find out very quickly he's locked in a room. He doesn't know why he's there. He doesn't know who did it. And he's basically imprisoned in this room. It looks, and it's not like a prison cell, but it is, but it's like a hotel room, like a one-room hotel room that he's just stuck in for 15 years. And there's probably about a 15-20 minute segment that's just his life in that room. And then one day he's randomly let out, no note, no nothing. He's just let out of the prison, let out of the cell, let out of the room into the roof of a building. And he basically spends the whole rest of the movie trying to figure out who did it and why they did it, and try to track down the perpetrator of this crazy crime against him. So it becomes it becomes a combination mystery revenge movie. And it's fantastic. And you can tell that hook alone is enough to just get people to like be super interested in this movie. What it does, and once again, I'm going to get into some spoilers a little bit here. So if you haven't seen the movie, go watch it. It's 5 stars. For me, it's 5 stars. And it lives up to it. It is a little bit, I do want to warn you though. Okay, it's a 5-star movie for me. But if you've never seen the movie and you don't like movies that kind of tend towards the sort of disturbing, this definitely does that. It's very violent. It's got some very kind of disturbing plot elements that a lot of people won't like. It's a little bit of a, quote, icky movie, I would say. There's some stuff that's just gross. There's one thing that I did fast forward past because I know it's real. There's a moment where right when he gets out of prison, he wants to eat something. I want to eat something alive. He says that at this restaurant. They give him a small octopus live on his plate and he eats it alive. And that really happens. I believe that was an actual one take. That I don't need to see. I guess I respect the willingness of the actor to just go for it. That one I could have lived with CGI on for me. I would have been fine with that. Anyway, that's your warning. If it's not your kind of thing, these kind of movies aren't your kind of thing, then it won't be for you anyway, even if it's a great movie of what it is. Now, all that being said, the thing that really struck me, I watched the comparison video, which kind of talked about the differences between the Spike Lee and the Park Chan-wook version. And the things that they pointed out, I thought was the things that were really interesting. And that is the morality of what's happening here is really unusual in this sense. It plays out like a revenge movie, but in most revenge movies, the point is like, this person wronged me. I'm going to find them and I'm going to kill them. Or I'm going to find them and I'm going to destroy their lives. Or I'm going to find them and I'm going to do to them what they did to me. Now, this does do that to some degree, but it does it in a really unusual way. And that is because you have, okay, I'm going to say this because obviously this is highly spoilerific right now. The biggest thing is this. So you got your main character being tormented, and the person who's tormenting him is angry because that person's sister has died. That person's sister died because our main character had revealed as a schoolboy that the sister and the brother were basically having a sexual relationship, a taboo sexual relationship. But the way it's shown in the movie is the brother and sister are shown as, quote, loving. Now, of course, highly disturbing and highly inappropriate, and just a lot of things you can say about that whole thing. But by presenting it the way they present, it makes you have to really sit with it and go, wow, this is really uncomfortable and odd. And who are my like sympathies with? Because person's sister didn't deserve to become the rumor mill of the whole school, to the point that she not essentially committed suicide. She didn't deserve that. And you can see why her brother now is like distraught and destroyed for the rest of his life. So by him taking revenge on our main character, what he does is he forces the main character to have the same experience. So he forces our main character in Oldboy to, through his discovery and through his search and through his vengeful path to try to get the person who imprisoned him, to be manipulated into falling in love with a young woman that he meets, that he only discovers by the end is his own daughter. And once again, what the movie does that's really interesting is, of course, you're supposed to be revolted and horrified, and our main character is revolted and horrified that he has done this with his own daughter, and that he is now in this position of not wanting her to know that they had this happened, and now he's going to live with this knowledge for the rest of his life. So that the final moment, when he goes back to the person who had hypnotized him in his prison, he finds that person to re-hypnotize him, to split his personality out so he won't be able to remember that his own daughter is this young woman, so that he can, for the rest of his life, quote, be in love with her without the knowledge of who she is. And putting us, the viewer, in that situation. Now, you're supposed to be like, that's terrible. That's horrifying. Like, why? We hate this character now. We don't want to know anything, we don't have any relationship to this character. We don't want to know anything about him. But by putting us with him the whole movie and following his path and his drive to solve what's been happening to him and the horror and the pain and emotional anguish he's been through this whole movie, you are in this weird position where you kind of do want to sympathize with him. And no sympathy for Mr. Vengeance in the old movie. You do want him to have some mental peace, even if having that mental peace, it means that he's going to live this horrifying relationship with an unknowing daughter. If you get my point, what this movie does is really interesting. Is it almost puts us to a degree in the mindset or in the stuck revenge plot of the characters themselves. Like, we are stuck having to almost sympathize, or we don't have to, but we're almost stuck like wanting a good outcome for this character. And by doing that to us, then it really pushes the audience to some really odd and sticky moral questions. And I think any movie that can do that, any movie that can be like highly entertaining and highly, like, it drives all the way through, and it plays in some ways like an action, like I said, like an action movie, thriller, mystery, to have all of those aspects, but then to give you like absolute moral abyss questions in the middle of it. That's a movie doing a lot of work. So that's why I think this movie keeps sticking around for people and keeps being, I guess, effective and on a lot of people's lists, because it does some really interesting things in that way. However, if you look at the remake, it throws a lot of that stuff out the window. And the basic moral ambiguity of the inciting incident, the brother-sister, is totally turned on its head and is not that in the remake. Instead, it's just straight up overt abuse and pain and horror, as well as the finale of the remake totally ignores and misses the point of Oldboy by having our protagonist at the end just say, I've done something terrible, daughter. Doesn't say daughter, but he knows it's his daughter. He says, I've done something terrible, daughter. I must leave forever and I can never be around you again. I'm going to go into exile. Once again, that choice, although it might make a lot of more sense to us, by making that choice, the movie is taking a cop out. It's not living in that really morally super questionable, way more interesting place that the original Oldboy ends. So Oldboy is 5-star classic. I would assume if you haven't watched it, you hopefully didn't just listen to all that, because it's going to ruin a lot of stuff. Although, you know what? Say you listen to that and it ruined it. You're like, you just ruined that movie. I don't want to watch it. I think you would still want to watch it, because there's so much style. There's so many moments, and there's so much filmmaking stuff going on in there and character stuff, that even knowing the secret of the twist, I guess, it would be a very satisfying experience. But not knowing the secret twist is a much more satisfying experience for sure, because this is of movie going history, I guess, twists or turns, this is definitely one of the bigger gut punch ones that has come along the pike. Put it along with something like, I don't know, Chinatown's a big one. There's a few that have these kind of similar, just, oh my gosh, this is what we've been doing all along. Wow. So that is my quick little spoiler-ish discussion of Oldboy. Okay, what else we got here? Just quick little recommends for the week that I watched. One of them is in the theaters, I think still as we speak. It should be for another couple weeks, although they go away pretty quickly. It'll probably be on streaming in 2 months. Either way, I watched Final Destination Bloodlines with my kid because it seemed like it'd be a fun one to go watch, and a lot of people did. Directed by Zach Lipovsky and Adam B. Stein. I looked them up. I'm like, have they done anything else? Yes, they directed a pretty cool indie, low-budget superhero-ish movie called Freaks. And that movie never gets talked about. And that movie is a pretty cool little movie. Anyway, Freaks, you should look into that. So there really isn't a review you can give. This is like watching a Friday the 13th movie or any kind of movie like that where it is a kind of a basic formula and it either does the formula really, a Saw movie or something, right? A movie that they do their formula either really well and it's a lot of fun, or they don't do the formula really well and it's not a lot of fun. So that's the real question you have with a movie like Final Destination Bloodlines. And I was thinking about this. How do I rate this? Did I have a good time? I had a great time. Was it what I wanted in a Final Destination movie? Absolutely, it was what I wanted in a Final Destination movie. So to me, this is the epitome of a 3-star banger. It's what a 3-star banger should be. And I was thinking about this. Why are the Final Destination movies fun? And then some other ones that are like ongoing franchises, like other, I don't know, Saw or whatever. Although I like Saw movies okay too. But like, why are some of those other ones not as much fun to me as a Final Destination movie? And I was thinking to myself, because Final Destination movies are all about the crazy, once again, Rube Goldberg-esque, very mousetrap, the highly improbable mechanisms that lead to these crazy deaths. And the deaths are often kind of gory, but the gore isn't really the point. Like in a Terrifier movie, the gore is the point. The point in the Final Destination movies is the crazy misdirection and the crazy elements that have to all lead to almost a punchline, almost a joke version of a death. And these are very much more humoristic than Terrifier tries to be humoristic, but it comes across to me as really, I don't know, emotionally, ethically gross. They seem like bad people making those movies to me, even though I'm sure they're probably not. They seem like it because they're cruel. Whereas Final Destination movies, they are like using all of their creativity to make these kind of elaborate, ridiculous deaths. And I think that's why I can find them to be fun as opposed to a Terrifier movie. And I was still trying to think, how do you describe to a person who's just not into these kind of things? Why would you want to be interested, or why would you like a Final Destination movie? And I was thinking to myself, it's like people who I think like really love action movies or maybe martial arts movies, right? I'm not a huge martial arts movie guy, but I get it, because if you are really into martial arts and you love the martial arts fights in a particular movie and the particular fighters and the way it's choreographed, and once again, I say choreographed, I think that's the key, right? Great martial arts sequences are going to have essentially a very well choreographed dance. And the more creative and the more, I guess, executed it is, the more fun you might have with that. That's my impression of how that works for people who love that. And in the same way, these are really highly choreographed, really well staged, like elaborate deaths. And the one I bring out, and there's quite a few really good ones in this movie. The one that really struck me was the Space Needle one. And once again, it's coded as the Space Needle. It's not the Space Needle, but it's supposed to be in, I think, the 50s or early 60s. And it's obviously supposed to be like the Space Needle, even though they probably didn't want to spend the money to buy the rights to that. Plus, the Space Needle never fell down or had any collapse. But it's just this opening night in the restaurant of the, quote, Space Needle with this young couple who are about to get engaged. And you meet all of the different characters from the trip, from the elevator ride up all the way to the moment that all heck breaks loose. I'm not swearing, Greg. I'm not even saying the HE doubles hockey sticks. You should be appreciating that. Until all insanity breaks loose, you meet like all these characters, the band, the servers, the other people that are dancing there, the young couple that we're following, a little kid who's just a little S something, a little jerk who's causing havoc, and just all of those things intricately combining to cause absolute mayhem. And then how it plays out is just fantastic. And once again, it's a set piece. It could be a highly choreographed dance, highly choreographed fight sequence, or a highly choreographed elaborate death sequence, which is what it is in Final Destination Bloodlines. Once again, had a lot of fun with this movie. Are the characters really interesting? Not really. You don't really care about the characters. It's just what's going to happen next. I will point out one other thing that I thought was really funny in this. There's one character who supposedly has survived this death curse for, I don't know, 20 or 30 years. When they go find that person, they're basically living in a cabin in the middle of nowhere, like in the woods, the Northwest somewhere. And the hilarious thing about it is, first of all, you're thinking like, well, how's that going to make them safer? And then you see that around their house, they basically built this fort to keep other people out, gates, and all these like logs carved into spikes. It looks more like a place you'd hide to be in a zombie apocalypse, right? To keep the humans and zombies away from your house. But also looks like the most deadly yard for a supposed safe house you'd ever have. So essentially, if she ever left the house, she'd probably be impaled on one of the spikes like immediately. So it's just funny that she would, it's like you create this super deadly environment outside of your house when you're trying to stay safe from death that can get you by anything, including, I don't know, a marble rolls across your floor, and that's going to lead to like a chain reaction of things to cause you to be blown up or something. Like that's the way this world works. So I thought that was really funny. Anyway, a lot of fun. 3-star banger. Last one I got is Mickey 17. Once again, that is Bong Joon-ho, another South Korean, famous director, Parasite, obviously. Made a lot of movies that have been really successful, the definite cult hits, a lot of them. This one stars Robert Pattinson as Mickey 17 and Mickey 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. Stephen Yeun as his friend, and who else? Mark Ruffalo as a Trump-esque figure, and Toni Collette as his wife, the Trump-esque figure's wife, not Pattinson's wife. Pattinson's Mickey 17. So this, if you're going to like this movie or not like this movie, I think it is much better to think of movies like Oakjaw and Snowpiercer. And if you like the kind of weird combination in those movies of really on the nose social satire, almost cartoonishly on the nose satire, as well as kind of sci-fi, somewhat dystopian worlds that are really creative, but also have a lot of like social moralizing. You've got to enjoy that weird combo that Bong Joon-ho likes to throw into some of his movies. And as I say, once again, Oakjaw to me, as well as Snowpiercer, are the best comparisons of his other movies. Those kind of mixes of kind of thematics. If you like those, I think Mickey 17 will work for you as well. If you're somebody who really hates it when you have this very overt, Trumpy sort of character being lampooned in the middle of a movie, in the middle of your sci-fi movie, then you could be turned off entirely by this movie just by that aspect. For me, it was somewhat distracting, but also it was goofy in such a way and so over the top that it almost became its own weird thing, and I could ignore the Trumpy comparisons and just enjoy it as a buffoonish, authoritarian like failure guy going into space to run his own cult, essentially. And if you get into it in that aspect, I think you can enjoy it a lot more. Overall, I did enjoy this movie. I think the basic conceit of this movie is pretty fantastic, and that is that this Mickey guy, Mickey 17, he's a total loser on Earth, and him and the Stephen Yeun character are essentially on the run from a loan shark because they had a loan for a business, it failed, and this loan shark is very cruel. And they know that they're marked for a very painful death, so that they are going to escape on this flight to another planet. It's like Earth is terrible, so they're going to take this failed politician, the Mark Ruffalo character's failed politician, has his own kind of like a commune / cult / rocket ship full of people that are going to all go off to another planet and start inhabiting and populating it with his own like perfect society. And he needs people to come along. The problem is Mickey wouldn't be good enough to be on that flight. But the reason Mickey gets on the flight is because he signs up as an expendable, and almost by accident. And Mickey doesn't know what that means at first, and the person that's giving it to him says, "You know what that means?" And he's, "No." He's like, "That means they can basically you can just get killed and they'll just reproduce you. And you're okay with that?" And he's not a very smart guy. He's like, "Sure, that sounds great. Am I going to get on the ship? Okay, let's do this." So he does it. And then, of course, the way they use him is just as almost like movies that kind of use androids or robots as a way to talk about kind of the socially downtrodden and the way we dehumanize certain groups of people. Well, Mickey 17 is basically that, because say they want to find out the effect of a virus that they might encounter, they'll just give it to Mickey 17, and when he dies, they'll reprint Mickey 2 or Mickey 3 once he dies. And you have a little montage of all the various horrible ways they mistreat and abuse and kill the various Mickeys leading up to Mickey 17. And then the rest of the movie is basically his experience on this planet and the problems that occur when he's supposed to die and doesn't. And I'll just leave it at that because it's fun to see the weird variations of what happens when the whole Mickey expendable experience goes awry in that world. And I guess world, it would be the key with this. I think what you enjoy or don't enjoy about these sorts of Bong Joon-ho movies is the worlds he creates. And I enjoy the level of creativity. For me, these kind of futuristic worlds where they're really fully realized and very much feel like the imagination of the particular director. Like you're not living in just another Star Wars kind of universe. You're living in a very unique Bong Joon-ho universe. To me, I really like those. In the same way that you really like something like, oh my gosh, my brain has lost it. Anytime you get a director who really can create their kind of own interesting, very intricate, fully fleshed out personal visions on screen, I think that to me, that's much more fun and interesting and exciting to watch than just another cookie cutter, say, I don't know, Marvel movie or something. Those don't really go as well for me. So I quite enjoyed it. It definitely is uneven in places, but I think overall the experience is quite odd and fun. And like I said, if you can get by the big hurdle, and I think the biggest hurdle for people are going to be the wide swings in styles, from comedy to social satire to trying to really have high pathos to just goofy. If you can get past that, and if you can get past the really obvious Trump satire stuff, then you could have a lot of fun with this. If you can't get by that, you're going to probably think it's one of the worst movies you've seen this year. So be warned. You might hate this movie. I would say if you hate this movie in the first 20 to 30 minutes, you're not going to like it anymore by the end. If you're on board, go for it. All right. That's what I got for this week. Although you are ready to get a Patreon episode in just a couple days. So look forward to that. Once again, that's going to be Tears of the Sun and Mahoney. All right, guys, I'm back into the attic. Thanks again for listening. Hopefully you got a couple good suggestions this week from me and from the guys. Bye.